This is Encore from Radio Elton John in London. I'm your host, George Matlock. Well, first of all, a big welcome to Elton John fans all around the world, and especially in our number one listening nation, the United States of America, celebrating 250 years. How about that? Well, we come to you slightly later than scheduled, but promise it was worth the wait. We have lined up a super special episode to pay tribute to the man who opened up Elton John's most important market, the USA, and saved his career. A man who ensured that fans can enjoy more than 30 studio albums for starters. A man who ensured that Elton fans don't look back at a gifted craftsman like Nick Drake, who became a legend only after his lifetime. Yes, we have a lot to thank this man. Tonight we will be speaking to record executives and to his dear son about the man from Uni Records who gave Elton a chance. That famous gig on the 25th of August 1970 at the Troubadour Club in Los Angeles. Don't ever forget his name, I won't let you, Russ Regan. Our thanks to Elton John World reporter Cheryl Herman for reminding us of her special interview with Russ Regan in 2014. You can read it on Elton John World. And check out special photos donated for a preview article on Elton John World for this particular episode. So first up, let's have a big round of applause, please, for someone who knew Russ better than anyone in the studio. His son, Dan Regan. Next up, former music journalist and now record executive who interviewed Russ, George Saadi. Fabulous. Thank you so much for joining us. And finally, someone who was actually at the Troubadour to witness Elton's most electrifying performance, Rick Frio. Hi there. Welcome everyone. Welcome to Radio Elton John. Gentlemen, this is a very, very special episode, and we are thrilled to have you all on the programme. Dan, maybe I can start with you. Now, Russ spotted the talent in Elton when other US record executives passed him off as yet another Jose Feliciano. What do you say to that? Says something about your dad's good ear, I think.
It does. And I think it says a lot about his conviction and his belief. You know, Rick can speak to this, working at uni with him. He was second guessed. He was second guessed by the label, by the, the heads of MCA. And he stuck with his guns, and he really believed in Elton, believed in the music, and, spearheaded the promotional marketing campaign that was Elton's trip to America and started at the Troubadour.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say that your dad actually saved his career, because back in London, where another, I would say, visionary, and that was Dick James, who obviously started off with Elton, sort of ended up with sort of Elton in his hands, and like, what do we do with him? It's not happening yet. He's not breaking through. This is before your song was recorded and became a hit. And we kind of needed the USA to give Elton a lift, which is incredible when you think about it, because he was a British act, and you would have thought it starts in Britain and it moves to export, right? Like the Beatles did. The Beatles didn't start in America. They started in Liverpool, in the UK.
Right.
So it's quite remarkable that happened. But then, having come to America, it's your dad who said, I think this guy's got a great voice and we want to give him a chance.
Right. And the initial album he had heard was the Empty Sky album. That was the album that was presented to him by Lenny Hodes. He listened to it. He liked it. I think it was Lady Samantha that was on that album. He listened to it, and he signed him for no money in the American and Canadian markets. And I think it was, I'm not sure how long after that, the Elton John album was being produced, and it was sent to the company. And my dad actually shut down the company after hearing the album, and he went berserk over it. I mean, he looked up. I think he said, "Thank you, God. This is amazing." And Rick can really speak to that more. But again, it just trusting your guns, your conviction, your intuition, and that's how it all started. And then, he said, let's bring him to the United States. I think we have to see him in person. We have to see him perform to really know if this is going to be a big act, become a superstar. And that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And the rest, as they say, or almost the rest, is history. But of course, it needed something more, right? We needed the troubadour to come in here as well. So let's talk about that in a moment. But let's bring in now, if we may, George. Now, it's going to get very confusing here because we've got two Georges in the studio, but I'm sure we'll work this through somehow. So you interviewed Russ, didn't you, some years ago, and you became lifelong friends. What impression did he make on you? And can you tell us a little bit about the flavor of your interview with Russ?
Sure. I grew up in Ohio, and there was a local huge record executive back there named Steve Popovich. He was the guy behind Meatloaf and Ian Hunter and acts like that. Been all over the business, and he asked me to have dinner with him at a music convention, and I went out to dinner with him, and he brought one of his friends who was Russ Regan at the time, which I didn't know, and I sat with them at dinner, and Russ was just enthralling me with these stories. He goes, I signed, he didn't volunteer it. It was in our conversation. He goes, I signed Neil Diamond and I signed Elton John. And I actually named the Beach Boys. And he was doing the Spinal Tap record. And he was doing the Flashdance soundtrack back then. And I had a magazine a trade publication that I did in the music business that was part of Clear Channel back then. And I asked him if I could interview him for that because I had just done Steve Popovich and I loved it. This is a way for me to meet and get to know and interview my heroes, my personal heroes. So it was selfishness to it, but he was gracious about it. And I came back to Clear Channel from this meeting and I said, is this guy for real? How can most people are known for one thing? Like I signed Elton or I signed, but he gave me like stories that I couldn't believe. And I go, could he have done this? And they go, do you mean you got to have dinner with Russ Regan? And I go, they go, oh my God, he's like a legend. And he goes, get him in here. So they were jealous of the fact that I actually was able to see him. And the interview came about that way. And after that, we started to spend some personal time together. And Dan was a little boy back then. And Russ called me and said, I'm coming out to where I lived in LA. We're going to go to a fireworks on the 4th of July. Do you guys want to come? So I actually said, come here first and we'll have a barbecue and then we'll go there. And Dan was a little boy back then. And we met then. I don't see Dan very often, but I used to see Russ occasionally and frequently. And it was lucky for me to actually know this, a man who was a mentor and became a friend to me.
Right. Okay. And just so we've got this for reference, what year was this? So we can sort of work out how young was Dan at this point?
Dan, what do you think? It was in.
So just for reference, I was born in 1992.
Okay.
This was probably late 90s, maybe probably late 90s.
Okay. So about a quarter of a century ago, we're going here. Right. Okay. Amazing. And as you say, already a huge name, of course, by then. He's been working in the business for about more than 30 years at this point, I would have thought. When did he, Dan, do you know, when did Dad sort of get into the record business and how did he get into the record business as well?
So he originally started out as a singer. He wanted to, he wrote a bunch of songs. He moved out to LA, I think it was 1956. And then 1959, he actually had a big hit, Christmas hit called "The Happy Reindeer," which was it was a big hit at the time, Christmas hit. And
the Happy Reindeer, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen. Okay, love it.
And he was writing a bunch of songs. He actually teamed up with Sonny Bono. They had a group called the Checkmates, and they wrote a bunch of songs together. And then Sonny actually was the one that mentored him and told him maybe you should go to the business side and become a record promotion man. And it was at that time, I think it was at Buckeye Record Distributors when he was in Southern California in LA, and he got connected to Murray Wilson, Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys, and he actually they were called the Pendletones at the time. and he actually changed their name to the Beach Boys. And he took them to Capitol Records to Nick Venet to sign. And he was off and running as a promotion man. And then he switched over to A&R, and then eventually became a record executive and started at uni. And with Rick, they had a lot of hits together.
So what year would that have been? When did he join the uni? Do you know?
I think it was 1967.
Right, yeah. So late 60s, yeah. But it's interesting what you said there about how Sonny Bono said to him, I think you should go into the industry side of it. What the heck is he saying? Is he saying that the guy wasn't a good singer? I mean, what's that all about?
I think he just had. I think he noticed that he had an ear for talent,
Yeah.
and he was just he had just had this wonderful personality. I mean, he just had a way of promoting, and he just very natural. So I think he was hanging out at the radio stations. He was getting records played, and he just had that natural ability to. He was likable. He was always out and about, and I think his personality really. Sonny saw something in his personality. He said, "You should switch over to the business side."
Yeah. I think that's what I've heard from a lot of people, actually, the key word, likable. He was somebody who people liked in the industry.
Right.
And it's funny that he started off by being a recording artist because, as you know, Dick James himself started the same way. I mean, before he got going with the Beatles and Northern, records and all that stuff, and then signing up Elton, he did Robin Hood for the film. The famous one, Robin Hood, da, 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 and all that. So it's incredible that they both had kind of parallel starts, and both of them became very influential in the music business in their respective countries. That's quite something.
Right.
Okay. Right. Now, finally, we're going to turn to Rick in a moment. Now, you were, I know, at the gig in Los Angeles at the Troubadour. But before we hear your account of this historic, and some say game-changing concert, I have been nagged all week by our band here. We've got a resident recording band called Pinner, and they've decided to record a song to pay tribute to tonight's gig. It's very kind of them to do that, and you're going to have to hear it. So bear with me, gentlemen. The song, they've only just recorded it, and it's called "The Night the Troubadour Took Off."
Superstar ignite. He was there to see the scene, and the songs were sharp and the suit was clean. Your song floated across the room, then Elton chased away the gloom. The critics blinked and dropped their pens, thinking we'll be writing this one again. A manager gasped, a record man cried, a waitress nearly spilled her wine. A superstar ignite. giant specs and enough nervous sweat to flood the decks. Nobody there could quite foresee how huge Sir Elton soon would be. He kicked the piano stool halfway to Spain, left every music boss completely insane. The crowd said, "We've seen something rare." Stardust exploded into the air. The troubadour still tells the tale of the skinny kid who couldn't fail. August 1970, LA sky, the night Elton learned to fly. So raise a glass to that little room where a piano chased away the gloom. One English lad, one dazzling show, and the whole wide world saying, "Go, Elton, go."
Wow, gentlemen, what did you make of that racket? Dan, first of all, how did that sound to you?
That was catchy. I want to record that.
Well, they're available for
Correct.
holiday events, bar mitzvahs, you name it. Okay, just drop the emails my way. George, what did you make of that one?
Lyrically, I was impressed, and the last thing I expected to hear something what I would say has a country feel to it.
I
From
was
here.
going to say the same
Yeah.
thing.
The surprise, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it was the piano that caught me, which is one of the reasons why I let this one go through. Is I said that piano, it sounds a little bit like, it almost sounded like Elton really pounding the piano, because he's always sort of pictured himself as being more of like a Little Richard type of artist. But now let's hear from the man who knows, the man who was actually at the Troubadour Club in 1970 or in August 70. So, Rick, you've heard that song as well. First of all, what were your impressions of Pinner?
Well, let's see. Well, Mr. Clark, if you know Dick Clark, I give it a 96. Got a nice beat. You can dance to it.
Thank you. You're too generous. Right. Okay. Well, now that's the song. They just to let you all guys know, they're featuring a promotional video that will be available on the Elton John World YouTube account this very month to celebrate 56 years since the Troubadour shows. So do check them out. Now, Rick, over to you, if I may. Now, I understand that at the Troubadour, it was a pretty much a case of the audience was pretty much music executives and artists. I know Mickey Dolenz was there, Neil Diamond, among others. A few weeks later, of course, Elton appeared in Philadelphia, where some say that that's where he convinced the record-buying public to take him seriously. Is that how you remember it, or is that being unfair?
Well, so far, everybody's hits all the highlights. But like any kind of a graph, it continues up and down, highs and lows, and all the highlights are there. But getting into the detail, that's where it gets more and more interesting. I mean, everybody can talk about, Elton being number one, but it's the point of getting to number one or getting to the Troubadour. Everybody just says the Troubadour. Well, there was a lot of effort getting into the Troubadour. I mean, you just don't go in there, especially at that time, the late 60s, early 70s. That was a singer-songwriter showcase location. Elton wasn't one of the regulars. He wasn't the Carole Kings or the James Taylors. He was a boy from another country. And we didn't have much going for us a couple of months before that when we released a few of his other records, which didn't happen. But regardless, the Troubadour was the highlight. Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Right.
So I got to take you, I could take you months, 3 months, 6 months before the Troubadour, but I can take you to 3 hours before the Troubadour, which to me, I think was, in my estimation, from my concern, from my personal input, was the most personal part. It was late afternoon. I knew that they were going down to the Troubadour, the group, going down to the Troubadour for a sound check. So Uni is on Sunset, Troubadour is on Santa Monica, a few blocks difference. Hot August day, top down, sun shining bright.
Mm.
I went to the Troubadour, and my eyes were, still not attuned to the dark club. in the afternoon. And when I walked in, I could hear the music playing. And the first thing that hit me was, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. We're going to be embarrassed.
You want more from Radio Elton John?
Because
You're
I-
listening to a preview. You can get the full episode, plus all episodes since 2022 with a REJ Platinum channel subscription. It costs just $5 for a full year. Plus, you get new episodes faster. Sign up at REJ.World or buy from the REJ app. Remember, REJ Silver Channel has only the last 12 months of Encore totally free.